Hey, welcome everybody. This is John Cini in Houston, Texas, and appreciate all of you getting on with us tonight. We are going to have a special presentation from the Omega Man himself, Mr. Stuart Tomc, out there in San Diego, California. Stuart has been an absolute student and leader in the nutrition industry for the last 3 decades. He's been responsible for over $1 billion in supplement revenue flowing across this entire world over that time period. As a former Nordic Naturals global spokesperson, that would be the world's largest omega 3 supplement company. He was literally on thousands and thousands of TV shows, radio appearances, podcasts. I mean, every health podcast that you can imagine, he's been on it. He's even been on Fox Business and on Newsmax, as you can see here on the screen. So we are very lucky to have him now here with us, especially since when you look back on his past from this press release, which was back in 2012, if you can see that microscopic little date on there, really incredible, where he was halfway around the world over in New Zealand, and they had this big press release where it said omega 3 health expert and consultant to the WHO. Former Stuart Tomc is urging New Zealanders to take an at home omega 3 blood test, which is incredible that he was leading the charge for everyone to get tested way back then. The problem was they didn't have a good solution after you got your score. Now what? And today we have that, and you're going to be able to hear about Stuart going through his own process of getting tested and then improving his score. Really amazing. And I just want to throw in one other thing because so many people miss this little tidbit. We have, for this company, we have over 21,000 reviews on trustpilot.com. Just incredible. You can see that on our website, and you can go read them all, good and bad. They're not all good. Almost all of them are good. But the question to you might want to ponder is, how many people do you have to have as customers in order to get 21,000 to do a review on the product? I mean, it's just incredible. So, with that, enough from me. We'll take it to the expert, Mr. Stuart Tomc.
Thank you, John Cini, for your warm introduction. It's such an honor to be your co-host, and I'm so glad that you're spearheading this medical professional call with me. It's just an honor to be your friend as well. You know, the challenge that I had with all of the world experts that trained me was that we were never able to fully deploy blood spot testing as we were talking about it in this press release. So what I learned from the world experts, I'm holding up here. This is one of our at-home blood spot tests. And inside of that box is this little filter paper and this small painless little lancet. And you put 2 drops of blood on the blotter, and then you send that in. What they taught me was that the future of the entire omega-3 debate was going to move from guest-based to test-based nutrition. That we were going to stop arguing about whether krill oil is better than green lip mussel oil, isn't cod liver oil the best, and we were going to test every patient. That was going to be the future, number one. Number two, there was a disconnect between eating fish. Here's my trusty can of sardines. A disconnect between the epidemiology and what we were seeing in randomized controlled trials. And so what these experts taught me was that whoever makes a product that's less like highly purified fish oil and more like fish, more like oily fish in liquid form. This is our balance oil that you're going to learn about tonight, that John talked about, that has 21,000 reviews. This is oily fish in liquid form. In fact, it's a Mediterranean diet in a bottle. So all of the nutrition experts and the lipidologists agreed, whoever comes up with a product that's more like a Mediterranean diet in a bottle, paired with a test to prove that it's working, they would ultimately win the omega-3 market space. And I'm here tonight with John to show you how and why that is Zinzino. But before we do that, we must get the disclaimers out of the way. The statements that we will make tonight have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. These products are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any diseases, which is absolutely no problem, because at Zinzino, we do things right. I've been in the supplement business since 1985, and there are so many ways to do this wrong, because natural products do not diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent diseases. They keep healthy people healthy. And Zinzino's mission, part of their mission, is to become the biggest preventive health company in the world. That's never been harder to do. So we don't make disease claims here at all. Never. Finally, success as a Zinzino independent partner, as I have found, as John has found, many people that attend this call have found, is not guaranteed, but rather influenced by an individual's specific efforts. Not all partners make a profit, and no one can be guaranteed success as a partner. All right, let's get the show on the road. Back in 2004, the FDA, the agency as we like to call them, gave us a qualified health claim. Supportive but not conclusive research shows that consumption of EPA and DHA omega-3 fatty acids may, that's the most important word, may reduce the risk of coronary heart disease. That statement is still on the government site. How much has changed in the last 22 years? A lot. But the government hasn't updated that incredibly important approved statement. And that's why these education calls are so critical. Now, in 2011, many of the world experts got together in Bruges, Belgium, at the Global Omega-3 Summit on Nutrition, Health, and Human Behavior, and signed a unanimous consensus statement. Now, they put their signatures on a statement that says brain and heart disorders resulting from omega-3 deficiency are the biggest challenges to the future of humanity. Let that statement settle in. Those aren't marketing people. I'm going to introduce you to some of these scientists. This comes from the ivory tower. The biggest challenges to the future of humanity is the omega-3 deficiency. Associated costs are currently bankrupting healthcare systems and threatening wider economic instability worldwide. When I was touring the world and talking to governments on how they could test and save their economies millions of dollars, personally and professionally, I was kind of going broke. And all of the other doctors and scientists that I knew in the field, they weren't able to participate in the market. It was only the fish oil manufacturers that were able to participate until Zinzino. At about the same time, Bernadine Healy, MD, the first female NIH director and president and chief executive officer of the American Red Cross, said, quote, no nutrient is more important for decreasing cardiovascular death and more lacking than omega-3s. We'll make the argument tonight that the information that you get from this test may be the most important number for health and longevity that you don't know, that you will know. And Zinzino's mission is to become the biggest preventive health company in the world. According to the World Health Organization, there may be as many as 6.3 billion people deficient in omega-3. My mentors and heroes have taught me that getting a good omega-6-3 balance, a safe zone as we call it, and a high omega-3 index is the most modifiable risk factor that we have for keeping healthy people healthy. Now, Zinzino's mission in writing is to inspire change in life. They have forever changed my life, and I hope that I can show you how they can help change your life and your practice's life as well by improving the health of our customers and the financial well-being of our brand partners by moving away from guess-based to test-based nutrition. That's the takeaway today. The mega trend is test-based nutrition. Pricking your finger and putting the drops of blood on there and knowing what's going on in the individual patient, that's the future. So let's take a look at this imbalance, the omega-6, omega-3 imbalance. When we talk about the omega-6-3 ratio for today's conversation, we're talking about the arachidonic acid EPA ratio. We don't put all the omega-6s and all the omega-3s in a bucket. That's been debunked. This ratio, the AA-EPA ratio, and then the omega-3 index that we'll talk about next. These are very important biomarkers. So let's just remind ourselves that arachidonic acid and eicosapentaenoic acid in this graphic abstract compete for conversion between lipoxygenase and cyclooxygenase. Arachidonic acid makes the largely pro-inflammatory hormone-like compounds, the leukotriene 4 series, thromboxane A2, prostaglandin E2, and they are so critical for health and well-being. Omega-3s compete for the same enzyme system and produce leukotriene 5 series, prostaglandin E3, prostaglandin E1. It is a dance, there is a competition, and there is a balance. We absolutely need arachidonic acid. It makes up a huge part of the brain. We need EPA to help modulate the effects of arachidonic acid. It's all about balance. It's not about value judgment. So this is how it affects our cells. When we are out of balance with too much arachidonic acid, not enough EPA, too many saturated fats, and we used to have trans fatty acids as well, that cell membrane, that cross-section of the cell membrane, that's where all of these fatty acids live. And then around the mitochondria and all the organelles. And when you're out of balance, we have reduced cellular function, hard, rigid membranes. Nutrients have a harder time getting in through the cell. Hormones, neurotransmitters, waste products come out more slowly. Now, this negatively impacts brain function, hair quality, heart function, skin elasticity, inner organs, joints, and muscles. To achieve a healthy cell membrane, we need a 3-to-1 balance between arachidonic acid and EPA, and an omega-3 index of greater than 8, which we'll discuss. When you go from out of balance into balance, we have normal cell membranes, normal function, soft, flexible membranes, allowing nutrients, hormones, neurotransmitters in, and waste products out. And if we're making new cells every day, which we do, that cell membrane self-assembles with whichever fats are there. The great Dr. Bruce Lipton, who wrote The Biology of Belief and many other books, says that cell membrane is a carbon-based liquid crystal semiconductor with gates and channels. He calls it the brain of the cell. He says the nucleus is the hard drive. So if you really want to optimize the cell membrane, we have to get back into balance. It's a microcosm of the macrocosm. This incredible paper from last year, Satoshi Moretti et al., a neuroimaging expert out of Japan, this might be one of the most important papers over the last decade to make the case as to why this is so important for our health to get back into balance. Polyunsaturated fatty acids and lipid membranes regulate human neuronal function and amyloid beta production. PUFAs in lipid membranes regulate membrane fluidity in human neuronal cells. And enhanced membrane fluidity decreases the production of amyloid beta. Moretti's research suggests that healthy neurons require not just enough polyunsaturated fats, but the specific fatty acid composition that evolution selected for the human brain, which is higher DHA, higher arachidonic acid, and low EPA in the brain, although it's critical for the body. So let's look quickly at the graphic abstract. We've got a lot to cover tonight. On the far left-hand side, the human brain was designed to have high DHA and high arachidonic acid. And what happens if we have polyunsaturated fatty acid depletion? Well, we get a synaptic size decreases, neurite complexity goes down, synchronized activity goes down. So when we have low fluidity in the cell membrane, too many omega-6s, not enough omega-3s, and too many saturated fats and monounsaturated fats, we have an increase in amyloid beta production. So I encourage all of our doctors tonight that are following this call, this is a paper you want to read and you want to dissect. I think it's very important. So let's remind ourselves of the competition. We looked at the competition between arachidonic acid and EPA for cyclooxygenase and lipoxygenase, but there's also a competition for desaturation and elongation. Alpha-linoleic acid, omega-3 on the left, and on the right, linoleic acid, omega-6, we call that LA. We call the omega-3 ALA. They're also competing for desaturation and elongation. And we used to have to study all of this and debate it in lipidology, but now we have the test. So even though it's important to understand that EPA is the regulator, it competes, competitive balance with arachidonic acid. It's important for resolution pathways, signal modulation. It also helps to produce some of the specialized pro-resolution lipid mediators. DHA, the architecture, synaptic structure, membrane flexibility, network integration, and information flow. Today, when we talk about omega-3 and the omega-3 index, that is the percentage of EPA and DHA in the RBC, in the red blood cell. And we want that to be 8% or higher because that's a proxy for every tissue and every organ in the body. And when we talk about the omega-6-3 balance, we're again talking about the AA-EPA ratio. Think of arachidonic acid as the signal. It's the substrate for endocannabinoids, eicosanoids, neurovascular coupling, synaptic plasticity, and adaptive response. And we want that omega-6 AA to omega-3 EPA ratio to be 3-to-1, 2-to-1. Dr. Artemis Simopoulos says maybe even 1-to-1. So it was critical that we understood this. Now we can start testing, and you don't need to memorize all of this. So the balance between omega-6 and omega-3, the history is really the history of civilization. We were designed and formed to be in balance. As you see, these fatty acids compete for conversion and placement. Science recommended that we have no more than, we call this omega hands for your patients, 3 parts omega-6, which is largely pro-inflammatory, to 1 part omega-3, which is largely anti-inflammatory. 3-to-1 is kind of where we want to be. We call that the safe zone. Anything above that, 4-to-1, 10-to-1, 25-to-1, 40-to-1, that's considered the danger zone. So if you turn on TikTok and YouTube, they're going to tell you that omega-6s are bad. The science says omega-6s are so critical, but if you're 25-to-1, your anti-inflammatory substrate, that tank is almost empty. And that's why balance has never been more important. Incredible work here from Dr. Joe Hibbelin from the National Institutes of Health, showing this incredible increase in omega-6 linoleic acid, linoleate, making up about 8% of energy, primarily from soybean oil. There's a 1,000-fold increase since 1909. But what this really is saying is that if you're eating that much energy, caloric energy from omega-6 seed oils, you don't have a whole lot of room left on your plate to put sardines or pickled herring on there. So if you have that much omega-6, you need an equal amount of omega-3 to stay in balance. So what are the consequences of omega-3 deficiency? Well, it's the omega-6 AA to omega-3 imbalance and a low omega-3 index. And when patients really understand that that's what we're focused on, the tissue is the issue, as my professor William E. Lands, the godfather of the omega-6-3 balance, always taught, that when we are out of balance, that is what is contributing to reduced brain function, hair quality decreases, reduced heart function, skin loses the elasticity, reduced organ function, joint and muscle pain. So being out of balance, that's the problem. Now we've got to go back to Sir Michael Crawford. He was recently knighted. He's 95 years old. He's one of the great heroes of mine in the omega-3 space. We call him Grandpa DHA. His book, The Shrinking Brain and the Global Mental Health Crisis, 2 Problems and 1 Solution, forward by the William Sears, MD, who's another omega-3 titan. Crawford and Marsh wrote this incredible book. And I've been following Dr. Crawford for a long time, and I beseech you to do the same. Back in 1972, Graham Rose, a journalist, wrote of Professor Crawford's work, if what Dr. Crawford says is right, We're on the verge of birthing a race of morons. Not language that I would use or condone, but it makes the point. He published in 1972 evidence that the brain requires arachidonic acid and docosahexaenoic acid specifically for its growth, structure, and function. Arachidonic acid derives from omega-6 fatty acids, which he says come from the land, and DHA omega-3 fatty acids that come from the ocean, that we grew up at the interface of the land and the ocean. And also for optimal function, the brain also needs eicosapentaenoic acid and other omega-3 derived fatty acids. Now, last year, the Office of Dietary Supplements, the agency, the FDA, when they published on April 11th, for the first time, a government made a health claim for long chain omega-3. You see, on April 10th of 2025, there were no health conditions in which EPA and DHA were indicated for. Because technically your body makes EPA and DHA from alpha linoleic acid. That's an essential fatty acid. People get confused. Well, everything changed April 11th. Look at what it says. Updates guidance on DHA for preterm and early preterm birth prevention. I wish I saw Dr. Crawford the day that this came out, vindicated. My former boss from Nordic Naturals called me and she said, "Did you see what the agency just did?" She said, "Repeat these words after me. All women of childbearing age." She said, "Say it again. All women of childbearing age." She said, "Say it again. All women of childbearing age." She said, "That's where everyone has come from and everyone will come from." Do you understand how big of a deal this is? Receive at least 250 milligrams up to 1,000 milligrams of DHA daily. And she started laughing. She said, "Stuart, doesn't this remind you of vitamin D like David? Remember we were kids, vitamin D was on the milk carton with that grainy missing photograph? When I worked at Sherwin's health food store in the 80s, vitamin D was on the bottom shelf. Shh, fat-soluble vitamin, don't take it. It could be bad." And then we started testing everybody. That's the exact same thing that's happening here. By the way, omega-3 used to be called vitamin F. So the future is going to be test-based nutrition for every human being. Now, this incredible paper in Progress in Lipids Research, many of the signatories, including Sir Michael Crawford of that global consensus statement, look at the pull quote on this recent publication. "There can be little doubt about the essentiality." You like that little knife dig right there? "There can be little doubt about the essentiality of omega-3 DHA and omega-6 arachidonic acid for the brain.
Stuart,
Nature has all.
that's a brand new paper, right? Just came
This is
out.
just hot off the press. Thank you for reminding me of that. That just came out. And I want, please, this is such a big publication. Simon Dahl has done an amazing job, Dr. Dahl. Tom Brenna is one of the world experts. Susan Carlson, Norman Salem Jr. won a Lifetime Achievement Award from the International Society for the Study of Fatty Acids and Lipids. These are the titans. And they say nature has already provided the answers. We must listen and learn. This is no longer folk medicine. This is no longer optional. Every patient needs to take this seriously, and this is evidence to support it. So you take these papers, I do all the time, I'm reading them constantly, and then pumping them through my different robots. I love this nice summary here from Zeno. That's the name of my ChatGPT, named after the philosopher Zeno. The key findings translated simply: balance matters more than absolute intake. Finally. It's not just more DHA. It's the ratio between omega-6 arachidonic acid and omega-3 DHA and EPA that drives outcomes. High omega-6 relative to omega-3, like 99% of people in America and 97% of people around the world may compete for enzymatic pathways and alter brain lipid composition. So what's the takeaway? Restore balance. Don't just supplement blindly, which we've been doing until Zinzino. Now, this very recent paper from May 8th of this year Hopefully, this says it all, but we've got a lot more to cover tonight. Causal relationship, not correlation, causal relationship of polyunsaturated fatty acids with mental disorders, a systematic review and meta-analysis. This is the evidence that physicians are looking for. And look at the conclusion. High omega-3 levels and omega-3% may reduce the risk of mental disorders, where a high omega-6 omega-3 ratio may elevate the risk. Graham Rose's assessment of Professor Crawford's work in 1970 came true. Just turn on the television, go to a family reunion, talk to your friends. It's happening. He said, I saw him years ago, he said, we have had a protein-based food policy. Sounds like David Attenborough. Our children are all taller than we are. If you look at the Natural History Museum and you look at the armor from the Dark Ages, we were really quite petite. We've solved the protein problem. Now we need a lipid-based policy because the brain is shrinking and IQ is going down, and we all know it. At about the same time, Danish physicians and researchers published 3 papers on their work in Greenland Inuit. Hans Bang and Jorn Dyerberg, Dr. Bang and Dyerberg. The dogma at the time was all fat was bad. Remember Ansel Keys in the 7-country study? He doctored his own data. Don't do that. The paradox at the time was that a high-fat diet equaled low heart disease. We call this the Inuit paradox. High levels of EPA and DHA, their hypothesis was that omega-3 protected heart health. Look at the graph. Inuit, which we called Eskimo at the time, versus the Inuit in Denmark versus the Inuit in Greenland. The Eskimos in Denmark in blue, the Eskimos in Greenland in that orange color. These are the same genetics. These are the same people living in a different place, eating a different diet. Now, Zinzino unlocked something that was missing in this story. You see, they were eating whales and seals. They were eating whales and seals every day, and the whales and seals were eating fish that were eating algae. And algae is where all EPA and DHA starts. Every bit of it in the marine food web starts in algae. And you'll see tonight that the algae is protected with an antioxidant, a polyphenol known as a fluorotannin, to protect the omega-3, to get it through the trophic levels of the fish, to keep it from oxidizing in your body so that it's incorporated into the cell membrane. This may be why eating fish is different than purified fish oil. So when we talk about the Inuit diet and people talk about high omega-3 and low omega-6, they always leave out that they were eating a ton of polyphenols. In addition, they were getting iodine in their diet, which is so critical. And then they were getting other cofactors from the marine food web like manganese, zinc, copper, and selenium that are critical for the antioxidant signaling in the brain. So the Inuit diet was oversimplified, and Zinzino helped to elucidate that as well. In 2024, the UK Biobank data started being data mined. If you're not familiar with that cohort, you should be. It's bigger than the Framingham group. It's 500,000. I love the headline for the patients. An imbalance of too healthy fats affects your early death risk, study finds. The lead author, and I'll show you the paper in a second, lead author said, we found that a higher omega-6 to omega-3 ratio is associated with a greater risk of early death. So it's the high AA, low EPA ratio and a low omega-3 index. That's the problem. And anything above 3-to-1 is the danger zone. 3-to-1 is the safe zone. Now everyone can test, adjust, and understand this. So here's the paper using 85,425 out of the 500,000 in the UK Biobank. Higher ratio of omega-6 to omega-3 fatty acids is associated with a greater risk of all-cause, cancer and cardiovascular mortality, a population-based cohort study in UK Biobank. This isn't saying that omega-3 is the panacea. This is why I love the data that's coming out. This is saying higher omega-6 to omega-3 is associated with a greater risk of all-cause cancer and cardiovascular mortality. The reporting on this paper out of the UK Biobank, I thought this time I'd show you the editorialization rather than the paper. I like the highlight here in Nutrition Insight. Higher omega-3 blood levels linked to reduced early onset dementia risk despite being APO4E, despite your genetics. Look at the key takeaway. New research links higher blood levels, not dietary intake, blood levels, not a food frequency questionnaire. People can't remember what they had for breakfast. New research links higher blood levels of omega-3 to a 35 to 40% lower risk of early onset dementia, regardless of an individual's genetic predisposition. While DHA is vital to brain health, non-DHA fatty acids like EPA, as Professor Crawford told us, showed an even stronger protective association, likely due to their anti-inflammatory effects. And look at the bottom bullet point. Achieving an omega-3 index of 8%, attainable through, this is my favorite part, daily supplements or fatty fish, is identified as a key target for long-term brain health. Whatever it takes to get 8% or higher in every single one of your patients. If they're going to eat 3 cans of sardines a day, fantastic. If they want to take balanced oil, which I'll show you is a Mediterranean diet in a bottle, that's great too. If they're on the pharmaceutical omega-3 that we're going to talk about, that's an option as well. But there isn't a patient alive, if you know how important blood pressure is and blood sugar and cholesterol, everyone needs to know this number. Now, the New England Journal of Medicine published this incredible paper in 2018, Cardiovascular Risk Reduction with icosapent-ethyl. What's that? That's the pharmaceutical ethyl ester form of omega-3, EPA, for hypertriglyceridemia, known as the Reduce It trial. The word on the street was reduce it was reducing death, because there were other drugs that lowered triglycerides that didn't lower death. And the agency, the FDA, said, we're not so concerned about biomarkers anymore. Can you prove that it lowers death? And the next year, the FDA approved that pill to the right. It's known as Vascepa. Now, drug names aren't supposed to reflect what they do, but this is clever. Vascepa, vascular EPA. It's kind of a cool name. And so this year in the Journal of the American Heart Association, remember, this is 2018, New England Journal of Medicine. This year, among statin-treated patients in their secondary analysis of the Reduce It randomized trial, the gold standard, among statin-treated patients with elevated trigs and high cardiovascular risk, EPA reduced the rate of cardiovascular endpoints, that's death, irrespective of your baseline cholesterol, including patients with optimal LDL control. We've crossed what I call the Rubicon, because this year, the American Heart Association, American College of Cardiology added icosapent-ethyl omega-3 EPA to their standard of care. And I'm going to blow it up here so that you can see it. If you could only imagine what I looked like the day this came out. I'm dancing an Irish jig all over the house. Finally, after my entire life in this space, standard of care. So now if someone says, I'm not interested. No, you need to make them interested. Look at what it says underneath. Lifetime atherosclerotic coronary vascular disease risk. Diet, Mediterranean diet. Would you like a Mediterranean diet in a bottle? I mean, this is such exciting information. Now, along with this, they've updated to check LP(a) levels at least once in adults. I like down here at the bottom too, lifestyle emphasis, diet, Mediterranean diet. It's so exciting to see this, because now you've got drugs for the production, absorption, and clearance of cholesterol, and that's important. We now have a drug, which is also a dietary supplement for reducing residual inflammatory risk. When this came out, one of my doctor mentors called me and she said, Stuart, do you see what's happening? It's in real time. She said, you can get a prescription or a subscription. Okay. I would recommend a subscription first, But if you want your insurance to cover it, if you wait and you get sick enough, they will cover it for you. Now, how do you get Vascepa? Follow along. Adults with clinical atherosclerotic coronary vascular disease or diabetes, you got to be older than 50. If you're 49, you're out of luck. One or more atherosclerotic coronary vascular disease risks, obesity, smoking, with persistently elevated triglycerides. So the trigs have got to be 150 to 499. And take a look at this. And LDL cholesterol on maximally tolerated statins. You want the LDL has to be below 100 and you're on the maximum amount of tolerated statins, and then you can get this stuff. And it's super expensive, and it melts styrofoam, which doesn't mean it has adverse biological activity. Now at the bottom, the guideline highlights that IPE, that's eicosapentaenoic ethyl, that's EPA, reduces atherosclerotic coronary vascular disease events, including CV death, MI, stroke, beyond statin effects, with benefits seen even at lower baseline LDL cholesterol in subgroup analysis. This is so exciting, and it only gets better. They also added the omega-3 index to what we call the pooled cohort equation. The omega-3 index is the percentage of EPA and DHA in the red blood cell. We want that to be 8% or higher. So it improves upon the pooled cohort equation in predicting risk for coronary vascular disease. So to remind ourselves, the pooled cohort equation is age. It's the biggest risk factor. Sex, women live longer than men. Race, Dutch people have higher levels of familial hypercholesterolemia. As an example, there are others. Total cholesterol, HDL, blood pressure, diabetes, and smoking. So they added the omega-3 index to the equation that every cardiologist uses. Now look at on the right-hand side of the slide. The paper argues that this number that everyone should know should be considered for inclusion in standard clinical risk assessments. It's not, and it will, just like that, like vitamin D, one day, and everybody will know that they need to get into balance, and we can help people before that happens. Why? It reveals hidden cardiovascular risk, not explained by cholesterol, not explained by blood pressure or smoking, pointing to inflammation, which we've talked about. If you want a healthy inflammatory response, you need a high omega-3 index, membrane structure. If you don't have the right structure of your cell membrane, you're suffering globally, and heart rhythm regulation. So now we understand these numbers. This is so simple to communicate. It used to be complicated. Now it's easy. You're at a high risk if you're less than 4%. Intermediate risk, 4 to 8%. Low risk, cardioprotective, 8%. So if your patients tell you, I eat sardines every day, I do intermittent fasting, I have a hyperbaric oxygen chamber, I hang upside down on gravity boots in my closet, you can ask them, that's great. Do you know your omega-3 index? Joe Hibbelin, MD, the top psychiatrist in the world from the National Institutes of Health, when this came out, and we talk regularly, he said, Stuart, you want to get to 8 and feel great. You want to be great? Get to 8. And he's the meme lord. Why? Because your red blood cell fatty acid profile predicts your risk of death at a level comparable to traditional risk factors. So in summary, if you fail this test and you're young and your cholesterol's in the right place and your blood pressure's in the right place and your blood sugar handling is good and you're a non-smoker, but you fail this test, it's as if you're smoking cigarettes. No, I'm serious. And I hope everyone gets very serious about making sure to test every single patient. So would you like to take a test and find out your results? What Zinzino can do is help you quantifiably improve the health of your patients, measurably improve the health of your patients while helping you cover some of, if not all of the overhead in your practice with little to no stress on yourself or your staff. Because what we're doing here is pioneering test-based nutrition. We call it kitchen table medicine in Scandinavia. We currently have 4 tests, and we have many more in the pipeline. And right now, Imagine being able to empower patients. You get your HbA1c test. If that's not covered, vitamin D, like David, it's still not covered. It's not on every panel. Your balance test, which gives you the AA-EPA ratio, the omega-3 index, and it measures 11 different fatty acids, and the gut health test, the world's first finger stick metabolomic pre-leaky gut test. We have no test that can tell you whether or not you're getting enough fiber. The gut test is a measurement of the gut-brain immune axis. If you've got leaky gut, you've probably got leaky brain. So I want people to understand that what Zinzino is doing is empowering people with kitchen table medicine, and then we send the highest quality products to your patient's front door so that you can divest yourself of having an apothecary in your office. Now, all of the samples are sent here to Vitas Analytical Services. Now, they flew me out there. Nordic Naturals is the biggest competitor to Zinzino. And they flew me out there. I got to see it with my own eyes in the Science Center in Oslo, Norway. Words cannot describe how impressed I was. For 31 years on the top floor, Vitas Analytical Services has the largest database of these dry blood spot tests in the world. And look at who they work with. Some of the most prestigious institutions and some of the biggest companies on earth. Now, my favorite part about the test is not only is it painless, this little Lance, when I handed these tests out back in, I think, 2007, when I introduced it to Nordic Naturals, people said, I'm afraid. I don't want to prick my finger. Now, if I'm at a big event and I prick someone's finger and there's one drop of blood, it's like sharks come out. Because everybody realizes the only thing that's above the pyramid of evidence is an N of 1, their own results. Is my second favorite thing. It's totally anonymous. You have a little identifier number, and there's an independent site that you go to, separate site. If you lose this number, if the patient loses their card, they can't get their results. So it's completely anonymous. They never get your details. It's easy to take, and it's painless. And we've tested 1.8 million people around the world. 1.8 million people, and 99% of people fail in North America, 97% of people fail in the United States, and 95%, as I'll show you, improve. And we can solve this problem for $50 a month. Here's our first major publication. There are more going through peer review right now. But for every science lover that's on this call, how many papers have you seen with 590,000 samples from 77 countries around the world? Is this not incredible? We had to do double-blind, placebo-controlled, randomized studies with inclusion criteria and exclusion criteria because we couldn't test the world. Well, we can now, and we are. So we are the leaders in test-based nutrition, and we're proving it with groundbreaking publications like this. And equally as important, not only can we identify the problem, we have the best solution I have ever seen. 5 of the former Nordic Natural Science and Education people, including myself, are now Zinzino independent partners because of what you are hearing tonight and what you're about to see. When we get people back into balance, that supports normal brain function. You've got to have inflammation. It's life. Omega-6 is critical, but you need omega-3 to modulate the inflammation and to have a healthy inflammatory response. Good hair quality depends on this, heart function, skin elasticity, inner organs, joints, and muscles. So these are some of the brilliant people behind Zinzino that have cracked the code, as I like to call it, and here it is. Instead of just standing on stage like I used to all over the world saying, at Nordic Naturals, we make the world's safest, most effective omega-3 oils. And we had great marketing, great company. It's fantastic. They contributed an enormous amount. Zinzino picked up the torch, and this is now the Netflix of omega-3. This is the Uber. This is the disruption. Why? Because you have to test at baseline. There's not anything else you're monitoring, any other biomarker that you don't test. So you got to test. Then you send it to the third-party independent laboratory with the largest database in the world. where the man that coined the term, the omega-3 index, William Harris, he studied there. Then you start taking this next generation omega-3 product that's more like food and less like fish oil. You get your results on your phone. The patient looks up their results anytime they want. You can have someone at your staff do it for them too, but it empowers the patient. Then check this out. They say if you're bigger, here's a little shot glass they send you. You're going to take more. We also have capsules, but if you're bigger, you take more. If you're smaller, you take less. And then you need to wait 120 days because we're impacting the red blood cells coming out of the bone marrow. You can't impact the one-day-old red blood cells. They've already been born and formed. The 119-day-old red blood cells, they're about to die. You can't impact those either. But the new ones coming onto the bone marrow, out of the bone marrow, you can. So we say you take it for precisely 120 days, and then you test again to prove what I like to call that the check engine light is off. This is the disruption. In addition, Zinzino has pointed out something that I think, well, I know I either forgot or never knew, and most people in the omega-3 industry, I don't think they fully have embraced, that all EPA and DHA on the planet, every bit of EPA and every bit of DHA starts from marine microalgae, every bit. Now, we're not talking about the EPA and DHA that you make from ALA that you desaturate and elongate. Preformed HUFA, the highly unsaturated fatty acids, 20 to 22 carbons long, 5 or more double bonds, right? Those are the ones that are making the eicosanoids and the SPMs. The polyphenols are the appropriate antioxidant in nature that protect the fatty acids from oxidizing and help them traverse through the trophic levels of the fish. And these polyphenols also, when you eat fish, help to make sure that it gets into the system and into the red blood cell more effectively. Look at the right of the slide. Purified fish oil is a far cry from the polyphenol ring around EPA and DHA. So unbeknownst to most of us, including myself, when you make fish oil, it's sort of like pasteurizing and homogenizing milk as an analogy. You've got to put vitamin A and vitamin D and calcium back in there for it to be worth anything. And when you finally see what you do to fish oil, and I've been to a couple of the big fish oil manufacturing facilities where they do molecular distillation, it does look like a nuclear reactor. It's an incredible amount of technology. So you're starting out with this crude anchovy stew, and it's squeezed and alkified and vacuum drying, but after it goes through molecular distillation to remove PCBs, dioxins, chlorinated organic pollutants, toxic heavy metals, mercury, arsenic. Remember Fukushima? I mean, by the time you remove all of that stuff, we denatured the fish oil. We removed all of the cofactors. This hit me like a ton of bricks, and I hope it hits you like a ton of bricks too. You might remove the contaminants, but you're removing the appropriate antioxidants. So what do fish oil manufacturers do? Read any label, any brand. After it's distilled, they put it in the bottle, read the back of the label, you see rosemary and vitamin E. Are those the antioxidants in nature? No way. So it might keep it stable in the bottle, but as you'll see, it might be very unstable in the human body. So these polyphenols wrap around the omega-3s for protection. And if you don't have them, you're missing part of the story. And Zinzino has helped us understand that. So they figured out how to put the polyphenols back together. You can't go back to the ocean. Those have been removed and they're gone. They went to the land and they looked at olive polyphenols. This is so brilliant. Why olive oil? Well, they're the richest source of polyphenols humans have safely consumed for millennia. Hydroxytyrosol, oleopian, tyrosol, all of these polyphenols, read about them. They do incredible things. Hydroxytyrosol is used in stroke models. There's a paper that shows it eats microcalcifications in your arteries. They're powerful prebiotics that feed gram-positive bacteria, that drive down gram-negative bacteria. They help increase the surface area of the fatty acids, exposing it to more lipase. And so the critical property is that they're fat soluble. Not all polyphenols are the same. There's like 10,000 or more. These are lipophilic. It recreates the protective coating of omega-3s so they travel together through the digestion. So balance oil is like eating oily fish in liquid form. In fact, it's the Mediterranean diet in a bottle. So the olive oil is the carrier, like an Uber, to get it where it needs to go. And I love that graphic abstract of the yin-yang symbol with the fish and the olive. I'll show you the publication that came from. But remember, the olive oil is the carrier like an Uber, and it replaces, I call it the terrestrial analog for the marine web fluorotannins that are inadvertently removed during distillation. So when it comes to olive oil, there are other incredible benefits. We're currently experiencing what we call the extra virgin olive oil war, the Evo war. Here, consumerlab.com for 26 years now, love them or hate them. Go into the store, they buy all the products, they test them, and you read them and weep. The highest level of polyphenols that they found was 645. It's small print, so there's easier to see. According to European Food Safety Authority, at 300, you're allowed a qualified health claim to reduce oxidized LDL cholesterol. 654 is the highest tested. Our balance oil is 750. That's incredible. This white label is made with Piquillo olives from Spain, which coincidentally, on the culinary side, won Olive Oil of the Year, the Piquillo olive from Spain. But we have another source of olive oil here in what we call our balance oil premium, 2,650. Now, if the highest tested was 649, 2,000 milligrams per kilogram higher. And this is made from a olive called Koroniki from Cyprus. And how did we get such high polyphenols? We use pre-harvest olives here, baby little olives that look like coffee beans. Normal olive oil is made with big fat olives. They masticate it and spin it around in a centrifuge. And you get, as you saw, 600 was the highest. And we won a blind taste test award for both the white label and then this year, last year, the black label, and this year, the white label. So it's the best tasting omega product. We have people in our team pouring it out like it's olive oil with bread at farmers markets, in their offices. Imagine walking into the office. Oh, you need a little bit of olive oil, and you taste it. You taste no fishy taste at all. It's incredible. So please, I hope you understand this cannot be recreated by taking fish oil and extra virgin olive oil separately. We have people that have tried that and tested. I have a practice. They bought 50 of our blood spot tests. They got our olive oil by itself. Here's a bottle of it. And then put people on Nordic Naturals or Pure or Metagenics and tested the people, and they did not get the same results. No other company makes an oil like this. You can't drink olive oil and fish oil and jump up and down. It's done on a molecular level during distillation. The polyphenols wrap around and protect the omega-3s. No other company makes a balanced system like this, and that's why we've been attracting the who's who in the omega-3 space. So it's 40% pre-harvest premium extra virgin olive oil and 60% fish oil made by Lisi. So it's not just fish oil, not just olive oil. It's a patented balanced system designed to protect fragile omega-3s from oxidation. No other company makes an oil like this. The evidence shows that polyphenols and fish oil together can increase glutathione peroxidase activity, and as well as a 50 to 200% attenuation of common inflammation biomarkers, up to 35 to 70 times greater oxidative stability. It was designed to help protect them, supporting stability, absorption, and measurable improvements in fatty acid balance, and we can make that claim because of our testing. Here you see that graphic abstract, olive polyphenols and omega-3 marine lipids. Look at the pull quote here. Natural polyphenols present in marine oils play an essential role in protecting omega-3s from oxidation and autooxidation, ensuring that no pro-inflammatory products, this is important, are formed after intake, as often happens with assumption of refined omega-3 concentrates. Naked fish oil might oxidize before it gets incorporated into the cell membrane. Here's evidence that the olive oil itself has extra benefits. In a high cardiovascular risk Spanish population, higher intake of extra virgin olive oil in relation to total olive oil consumption was associated with reduced LPA levels. Here's my before and after test, Nordic Naturals, and then Zinzino, out of balance, into balance. Here's my favorite case history. Here's a woman who scored 23-1 eating a plant-based diet and taking omega-3 supplements. Look at her arachidonic acid level, 8.4. She got more than enough AA because she was eating a ton of LA. Look at her omega-3 index, 3.1. Her check engine light was on. She had no idea. She was convinced she would pass. Here's her second test. This should be the entire presentation, should it not? That would save you about an hour and 10 minutes of your life. Every single person you want. Look at her omega-3 index. It went from 3.1 to 9.6. Her arachidonic acid went from 8.4 to 8.1. We get you back into balance and increase the omega-3 index. I've never seen anything like it. And then we have an entire protocol that our chief science officer, Professor Paul Clayton, created. One for the cells, one for the gut, one for the immune system, and one for the brain. Now, over 1.8 million people have been tested. 97 are out of balance globally, 97%. 99% are out of balance in the United States. And here's the number that helped me dedicate the rest of my life to this mission. 95% achieve balance or improve within 120 days when following the recommendation. That's 95% of 1.8 million. It's a 1-second solution. The patients change their own diet after they prick their finger. When they get their second results back, they're zealots. Now, there's extra benefits to getting into balance for the gut-brain immune axis. We can go through this more in later trainings, but the original gut test shows you who's there. Our test shows you what they're doing. We're betting big on blood for gut health. You don't want a low gut health index like this or a low IPA level. High IPA is a signal of microbial balance and epithelial resilience. We call it the zipper. You want a high gut health index like this. And if you have a high IPA level, you know you're eating enough fiber. This shows you that the gut-brain immune axis is behaving correctly. These are not diagnostic tests, they're system maps. And the rest of our supplement line is unmatched. Now, let me, in the next few minutes, put a bow on this by telling you about this incredible company and how we can help you. Founded in 2005 by two of the best visionaries, and they're young. Hildy Solly is 46. Her husband just turned 50. And they have their vision to become the biggest preventive health company in the world. And they gave up control. They're a publicly traded company. So they're in the field like us. And if you look at the blue and red dots, we're just taking what was a raging success in the rest of the world and bringing it over to the Americas. So these young visionaries have created a proven company, proven products, proof of concept is remarkable, proven earnings, and positioned for massive growth. Because it's been said to create a multi-billion-dollar industry is actually quite easy. Simple. Find a problem that affects millions. We found one that affects billions. Offer a solution. We have an incredible solution, and deliver it through an entrepreneurial distribution system. That's why we need your help to help us change the world, because almost everybody fails. We have a solution that works almost all of the time. We now know because over 1.8 million people have taken the test. The first test shows the problem. The second test shows the solution. We can solve the problem for about $50 per month. That's why I have this graph behind me and this graph in front of you. It took us 17 years to reach 120 million and then doubled in just a few years. And then we just were up 25% the first quarter. This is the future. It's test-based nutrition. This is the mega trend. When I joined, We did 205 million in sales last year, 363 million in sales. Now here's the math on the opportunity. We are so far pre-trend. There are 330 million people in America. We've only tested 71,000. That's pre-trend. In Europe and in the Baltics, we've tested 1.5% of Scandinavia and the Baltics, 1.5% on aggregate. When we test 1.5% of the United States, that's 5 million tests. We've only tested 71,000. That's 1 billion in sales. When we hit trend like Oura Ring or Whoop or any of the trends out there, intermittent fasting, anything, that'll be 8.2 million tests. So what we're showing you is the closest thing you've ever seen to a sure thing. Because unless the blood is different here than it is there, which it's not, and this is the biggest market in the world. In Canada, the opportunity is even more subterranean, and we're going to have 100,000 new partners. Our biggest market are doctors in Germany. Our biggest market are people like you. That's why we do this deep dive call. Well, you'll have 1 million new subscriptions. Wouldn't you love to participate in that? Changing the world, getting people healthy, and earning residual income. Getting started is so easy. You can have a customer kit or a partner kit. Let me show you the retail value since I spent my whole life in the vitamin business. You're going to be able to offer this test to your patients for $127. It's $179 retail because you're a Zinzino independent partner. Now, the oil is $67 a bottle retail. You're going to include that compliments of you. So they get the test and the bottle for $127. Then it's $47 per month. This product is twice as good as Nordic Naturals and half the price. On the 5th month, you're going to get the second test for free. So you're offering a $423 retail value for $127, and you're still able to earn residual income. This is the future. Direct to patient, D2P as I like to call it. Now, in Canada, a little bit more because of the exchange rate, but the same opportunity. Now, to become an independent partner, it's so simple. You either select what we call the basic kit or the ultimate kit. In the ultimate kit, you get 10 tests. You get a total of about $3,000 worth of product. It's a thank you. It's a thank you because what you're buying is the Zinzino online business. You can order these kits over and over anytime you want for people that are still pricing it. I've got a lot of doctors that do that and just put it on the shelf. And then when they figure out that they can sign everybody up on subscribe and save and make as much or more, they do that as well. But you get 10 tests in the ultimate kit. And we are so convinced that you'll succeed that at the end of a year, when you have 25 bottles on subscription, they will refund your practice the entire investment to start your Zinzino business. It is so thoughtful and so kind. The same opportunity in Canada as well. Now, what makes us different than full script is you can love it, share it, and get free products. Your patients can love it, share it, and get free products, and the providers earn residual income. Full script doesn't offer anything like that. This is what they're doing in Europe. It is so brilliant because you've got two sides of the business, a customer plan. I've got practices. We have practices that just have hundreds of customers. But then we've got doctors on our team, some are on this call, that know if they duplicate themselves around the world, they help even more people and they earn more money. So when you get 100 bottles on subscription, you get a one-time bonus of $11,500. But it doesn't stop there. Let's say that you had all of your patients on the protocol, 4, 8, 12. Now that number is growing very quickly. And the people in Europe that have mastered this program have 1,000 bottles on subscription. If your practice had 1,000 bottles on subscription, that's $100,000 a year, and you don't have to touch any product at all. Some people do a mix. They sell some of it analog, if you will, and some of it digital, but you really have to give it up to Zinzino and young business people for thinking about this being the future. So if you want to duplicate yourself and bring your colleagues around and build a team around the world with us, then the upside is virtually unlimited. It's incredible. There are doctors in the team that are earning life-changing income and focused almost exclusively on Zinzino now. And I also love that at the higher levels of the company, you can earn stock in Zinzino, but the mission is always the same and it'll never change. We're here to measurably move the dial on public health globally and to change the world. And we have a turnkey training system. We teach you everything. John mentioned this, so in closing, I'll mention it again. Don't just take omega-3, prove it's working. Backed by science, trusted by 21,673 reviews. And it would be our honor to partner with you and to help change the world. So what is your next steps? Become a Zinzino partner, schedule follow-up, become a customer, connect us with others. Thank you so much for your time and attention today. And it's my privilege and my pleasure to answer any questions from the audience. Thank you.
Awesome
Is it, how
stuff.
do I say your name correctly?
Yes,
Johnny says,
Molly.
okay.